Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our listeners, particularly our speaker, Caroline Tompkins, John Treleaven, my partner in crime. How are you both today?
Terrific.
Doing well. Thank you, John.
Oh, absolutely. So, this series of trade discussions that John and we call ourselves, what do we call ourselves? John squared or
Something
John
like
and
that. Yeah.
John, something like that. You
One
know,
is not enough.
that's a good one. Super. This arose out of the shock to the Canadian economic system that we witnessed earlier this year. And as John and I hosted, participated in various business organization networking events, etc., increasingly the businesses were telling us, boy, we'd like to diversify our trade. We'd like to learn how to react to the shock to the system, but we don't know how to do that. And so these discussions in large part have helped build that bridge to how do you do that. And we're very lucky. John, one of John's colleagues from a while ago, Caroline Tompkins, the CEO of FITT, is joining us today. FITT standing for the Forum for International Trade and Training, a perfect guest for so many companies that are wondering, what do I do now? So, Carolyn, before we get into asking you questions, John, maybe you have some context that I've missed.
Well, I'd just like to say that trade diversification, as we know, will only happen one transaction at a time. Since we last spoke with my colleague John Tennant, the federal government, the prime minister, and indeed a couple of provinces have been very active at the premier's level. The prime minister has last mentioned trade diversification at the UN podium yesterday. There are missions. I think Scott Moe was in China. These kinds of activities are starting to happen. But in the end of the day, to be successful, and John Tennant last week, of course, last time we spoke, give a comprehensive picture of where the trade policy environment beyond the United States favors Canada's trade because of the agreements that have been in place. But the reality that I see is that in discussing trade diversification, there are too many economists discussing it as if nations actually trade. They don't. Businesses do business. And so I felt that after John's excellent scene-setting discussion of a few weeks ago, we should move right into those elements and mechanisms and assets that Canada possesses to enhance our ability to diversify trade. And one other small comment, as you know, the Prime Minister is also extremely aggressive in his efforts to create a common market in Canada. So for Canadian businesses, not only is this an opportune and necessary time to diversify trade abroad, but for many Canadian businesses, it's going to be the first time in their corporate lives that they've been able to actually freely do business in a neighboring province.
Yeah,
If the Prime Minister's initiative works.
that's great context. Thank you, John. Carolyn, hi.
Hi.
We're on the West Coast. You're in the Middle Coast, I guess, and which means Ottawa. Tell us about FITT. Tell us about yourselves. Tell us how companies can benefit from what you do.
Okay. Well,
Big
first,
question.
big question. Yes. How much time do we have?
Exactly, as much as you like.
Well, FIT, what is FIT about? Global ambitions require global skills, and that is really what FIT is all about. FIT provides practical training, the tools, and also the confidence to help exporters succeed in world markets. So our message is very clear. FIT's message is very clear. Sustainable global success is built on global skills. It's not just built on ambition. So you may have companies, small, medium-sized companies wanting to do international trade, and they may have a great product, they may have a great service, but as John mentioned, it's not countries that trades. It's individuals that trade one transaction at a time, and those individuals need to have the global skills, not just the ambition to do international trade. So the companies, and in particular, FITT really focuses on SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. The companies need people with specialized international trade knowledge, with cultural awareness, with hands-on experience. And that is what FITT's training programs help do, is create and upskill SME export teams by filling in critical skills and knowledge gaps, whether it's, how to enter a market, what are the finance and transaction tools available to me, etc. But basically giving the individuals that are supporting those trade transactions, one transaction at a time, the confidence and the competence to actually move forward and navigate global markets.
Well, that's fabulous. Are you a federal civil servant, or is FITT a separate?
We're separate. We were actually initiated back in incorporated back in 1992 through a very unique public-private partnership between the federal government and the Canadian private sector, designed specifically to create and establish national standards on international trade training. So that was back in 1992. And the reason we got started at that point is because in the late 80s, the Canadian government was really trying to promote more companies to diversify their markets beyond just the US. So with the
Been a long road.
yeah, it's been a long road, and we are still to this day talking about diversifying markets beyond just not having all your eggs in one basket. And that's what diversification of markets is really about making sure that if things go bad in one market, you have enough other clients, customers, that you'll be able to weather the storm, whether it's global uncertainties or including tariffs, etc.
I understand, John. What did you say at the beginning? It's better than to have one John or something like that?
And two Johns are better than one.
Oh, right, exactly. So I'm going to really take advantage of that right now.
Yeah.
So, John, I know you've had some history with FITT, and can you tell us that and some of your anecdotes around?
I've had a lot of history, and Carolyn knows very well. It started in London when we were there in the mid-70s, and Saskatchewan sent a federal public servant by the name of Dieter Hallwick out to help Saskatchewan business. He eventually stayed there and noticed that in Europe, he didn't have any central vacuum systems. By the time he and his family moved back to Ottawa, they were selling beam vacuum systems in 22 countries in the Middle East and all throughout Europe. And you know very well, Carolyn, one of the things that you'd hear Dieter saying, God, if only I'd known X sooner, I could have made more money if only I'd known that. And Dieter had the chops to begin to persuade a group of, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, the Canadian Institute of Logistics, the Canadian Manufacturers Association, the Canadian Exporters Association. About 7 came together to do this. And he was a visionary. I would say what he needed, however, were the skills of people like Carolyn, who brought a deep knowledge of the education environment in Canada at an academic and an organizational level. And Carolyn, what year did you join FITT?
A few years ago.
A few years, just
there we go, John.
Okay, sorry.
Just out of high school.
Yeah, but no, let me say, as a former director of FITT, and I was on the board for a very long time, Carolyn's skill and her skills at building a team together have propelled this body of knowledge, kept it current, and propelled it to the stage of being delivered now. In the old days, I guess, before there was online delivery, it all went through the really community college system. But for many years, it's of course available online and through how many delivery colleges have we got now, Carol?
Well, we have over 30 partners that are delivering across the country. And then, as you mentioned, we have the online We have comprehensive programs to free 30-minute webinars on specific topics like tariffs or whatever's, the hot topic of the day or the month.
Okay, a couple of questions, please, Caroline.
Sure.
Although I'd love to hear anecdotes. I mean, these days in this digital age, storytelling is the most effective communication tool. So I'd love to hear about those. But let's get into some mechanics here.
Okay.
So I've been involved with online learning and online education all my life, and I had a company that delivered that, etc. So I'm really keen on what's happening here. So you'll partner with let's say local colleges here, Camosun College. Okay, so let's say you partnered with Camosun, then they would be the delivery mechanism through their online delivery system. I take it. Is that how it works?
Generally with the colleges and universities, there'll be delivery mechanism mostly through the in-person classroom setting. And then FITT, we deliver directly the online. However, in saying that, we have some agreements where we're working with the educational institution and they're delivering virtually as well. So, but generally speaking, when you see one of our delivery partners, they are generally doing it in person. So this way we get in-person delivery as well as the online, because not everybody is interested in online.
Yeah.
And,
so
in terms of that model, John, important over the years to many of the students was the fact that in a college classroom setting, the teachers, the school would invite local business people as resource people to come. And indeed, we've had teachers of FITT who are business people and just take it, they're so strongly interested in working for the community.
Yeah. Well, they call that model a hybrid model of learning. And so Carolyn, let's say both John and I have history with the Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, which is a chamber of commerce covering lower Vancouver Island economic engine, frankly. Could a chamber help deliver?
Absolutely. We'd love a chamber. We'd love them to deliver. And what's really nice is when we set up partnerships with delivery partners, whether the chambers, private, public institutions or organizations, there's really no upfront fees. It's just if you win, we win. We both win.
Oh, fabulous.
So
Yeah.
it's not really an onerous process to partner with it. We do ask that the organization's been around for a few years, has a history in delivering products and services to their community.
Yes.
But obviously the chamber does, and then they can deliver. And if they're successful, then we're all successful. The clients we serve together and both organizations.
Have you seen an uptick since the disruption in January in FITT interest?
Definitely an uptake in our online courses for sure. I think since the beginning of the year, since January, or year to date, we're up about 31% for the same period as last year in 2024.
Oh, wow.
For the online courses specifically. So there has been a lot of interest. We're in tons of webinars these days in terms of, how are tariffs affecting businesses, how are businesses responding to global uncertainties, etc. How is FITT helping those businesses respond to global uncertainties? So we've had, I think, been in about 60 or 70 different sessions like these since the beginning of the year.
Wow. Wow. John, go ahead. I could ask 100 questions in a row, so please go ahead.
Well, no. I guess I'd want to point out another one of the elements of the enormity of the challenge that we face as a country and the business community faces. Years ago, when I was in Ottawa, I was asked to try and figure out how many jobs were involved in $1 billion worth of exports, because the Prime Minister was going down to meet President Clinton and they wanted to be able to tell him. And so a group of economists I chaired for a moment, and we came up with 11,000 jobs per $1 billion of exports. The economists said there's certain inertia in an economy, and so if you hit the Canadian economy with $1 billion order tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, you'd create 6,332 jobs. Today, we're a little more productive. And it looks like it's about 6,000 jobs or so per billion. Now, what does that mean? That means that the jobs of about 3 million Canadians are held in place by creating value for American consumers. The same is true for Americans creating value for Canadian consumers. And globally, exports and imports represent almost 60% of our economy and about 4+ million employees and workers. The task is enormous, particularly when you say, okay, yes, we've got priority markets, we've got trade deals, but it is one transaction at a time. It is the ability of the Canadian entrepreneur and the employees to create value. And for that, FITT is perfect because you, as I said before, sell on price, yield your profits to somebody else. Sell on the knowledge platform, you've got a much better chance of a mutually profitable deal. And you know only too well, John, you're in business all your life. Business is not a zero-sum game.
Well, re-educating ourselves in these times of turmoil, which I might suggest we've only seen the top of the
Yeah, I agree.
iceberg. It's going to get worse. I'm going to editorialize now. It has nothing to do with Caroline. I do think that the president is going to go cookier by the day. He seems to demonstrate that evidence of that. We just don't, used to, yes, I am a serial entrepreneur and I have worked through 6 recessions in my lifetime. And when we're in these recessions, we're always able to at least say, well, we got to do these 3 things, or the government has to do this for us to get out of it. There was some sense of a continuum of solution. There isn't now. Well, yeah, any day he could change his mind. And so the only continuum, or the only solution on the continuum, is to diversify our income source. That's the only thing that we can do, and we generally don't know how to do that because we've been trading with the U.S. all our lives. We know.
Yeah, but John, let's keep in mind that trading with the United States is not the easiest thing in the world either. I mean,
but I'm familiar with it. We've been familiar with it, right? But for me to now go, I want to trade with Britain or England, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
and a
Caroline.
year ago or a couple years ago, if we were, speaking to a company about exporting and they haven't done exporting before, first thing we would suggest is go to the US because it's the same language. We're familiar with the time zones, familiar with the culture. We know often more about American culture than we do about our own culture here in Canada, unfortunately. So, but diversifying, I think, as I mentioned, diversifying has been important for Canada for forever. Like tariffs to me recently have just been a bit of a wake-up call. We're always responding to global uncertainties. Doesn't matter what president's in place in the US or anywhere else, there's always uncertainties going on a global basis. I think it's just what's happening now is that our traditional trading partner is definitely changed forever. Doesn't matter who, what's going on when we go forward. This trading partner that we've had with the US is gone forever. And so from FITT's position, these tariffs, fixing this is not a quick fix solution. Like the best way that SMEs can mitigate their market uncertainties, whether it's tariffs or anything else, is to diversify their markets. And it's more, and that is about a long-term strategic commitment versus a quick fix tactic.
Yeah.
Right. With the tariffs, I'm just going to say, with the tariffs in place, companies, they have to implement some short-term tactics to mitigate their immediate risk. But ultimately, as I said, tariffs are just a wake-up call. It's just, we have to do more. They have to actually, SMEs need to really help themselves by taking an intentional approach to building their markets and diversifying in the US as well as elsewhere. Wherever somebody, a client, a customer is going to buy your product or service, diversify. But don't just keep all your eggs in one basket.
So to John's brilliant point earlier, the lowest hanging fruit isn't overseas. It's in Alberta. It's in Ontario. So, so do you guys help with that?
Well, I think it's great from a Canadian perspective, and somebody living in Ontario who wants to drink BC wines. I think it's wonderful that, I might not have to pay 21% tax on that anymore. And why
Yeah.
would I, being a Canadian, etc. But um, let's face it, the Canadian market's too small to we're just too small. We're in terms of making a huge difference to our GDP by trading with each other. I mean, it's a good step. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not a good step. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have done this like years ago. Um,
But
but
do you
it's
provide?
not, we can't rely on that to make a difference.
No, but but does FITT provide some courses and education for internal trading that
No, we're
okay,
strictly cross borders, but that sometimes what you learn going cross borders can be the same as doing business and trying to get some wine from the BC or Quebec, trying to get your product into Quebec. A
absolutely.
lot of a lot of very similar foundations, but
Yes.
Sure.
different specifics. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And,
still
and
need
the-
market entry strategies, right?
Yeah, and I think that the general point, John, is that with 58% of the Canadian GDP generated through international trade, buying and selling, investing, everything else, Canada as a domestic market has been an imperfect platform for the courageous companies that are generating more than half of our annual income. With interprovincial free trade as a reality, and it will not be easy for Mr. Carney, and I hope he has the intestinal fortitude to stick with it, Canada becomes a stronger export platform for companies that can that will tackle the world.
Mhm.
And it's in that sense that they're linked. And later in our discussions over the next few months, I'm going to bring this right back to every individual community. I mean, John and I live in the Saanich Peninsula. John has been very active with a group of manufacturers, largely around the Victoria Airport. Well, they represent, I think, 55% of everything manufactured in Greater Victoria.
Correct.
We will eventually have a discussion about the environment locally that may not be as conducive to business as.
Oh, well, yeah, those are national problems around workforce availability, capacity of trades, capacity of people to do the work. But there are companies around here generating 30, $40 million a year, which, on a Canadian measuring stick is not bad, certainly not an American one. And a lot of that trade is, I can assure you, it is not local and it is not Canada-wide. That is international trade, primarily in the US. Carolyn, could you, I can put you on the spot here. Can you give us some high-level categories of the sort of education that you're providing? Like is there sort of a little rough curriculum that you might run through? Here, I'm a company now. I've heard this podcast and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. What would be the sort of areas of activity that I would be learning?
Oh, okay. So it's quite broad. You'd be
Okay.
learning the feasibility of international trade. Is it viable for you? Is this opportunity viable for you? And how you figure that out is what are the cost benefit analysis? So you need to do a cost analysis, you need to do a risk mitigation process, etc. And those are things that we teach people basically about how to get export ready. Then you have international market research. So
Mm,
what markets out of the hundreds of countries in the world, as we were just talking about, which markets do you go to and why,
mm,
right? And then once you pick that country, you want to figure out what's your market entry strategy. Are you going to go in direct? Are you going to go in by investing? Are you going to go in through a partner, through a distributor, etc.? So you have different market entry strategies that you need to select. And You might not, as a company in Victoria, you might be in 5 or 6 different countries, and your market entry strategy may be different for each and every one of those. So that's one thing to keep in mind. It's not a one size fits all. Yes. Hence why the market research and research and planning is very, very important. We also look at products and services from the perspective of do they need to be adapted to the new market? And also looking at, helping you determine whether or not you're competitive or not. Like, who are you competing with? What's your secret sauce with your product or service?
Yeah.
Is it price? Is it quality? Is it just something that nobody else is offering? Then there's also the whole, how do you manage your logistics and supply chain? So we cover those things as well. So the breadth of what we cover is quite substantive.
Substantive. Yeah.
Substantive, thank you.
Of course.
It's quite substantive, and but at the same time, some people just might need, I really just need to understand the financial transactions and what's available to me, and how can EDC support me, or how do I do an international trade cash flow, or what different payment terms are there?
Yeah.
And those elements of the trade, we can identify and support companies and the individuals working for those companies as well. So, well, we cover, quite a substantial amount of content. People can take it in small bites or in a comprehensive way. So
Wow.
market research, how do you modify your products? How do you assess your export readiness? How do you set up your payment systems? But really it's all around building that talent within your company to support your international trade functions.
And preserve your margins.
Preserving your markets, yes.
We're going to get FITT out on the West Coast. Who's delivering FITT right now? Is it any of the colleges or
We do have quite a few, but mostly, and we have also accredited partnerships as well, and they're all listed on our website by province.
Okay, because John has the background. He's worked with the program. He knows the trade commissioners. He knows about trade. This is a made in Peninsula solution.
That's right. I should note too, we also, speaking of the trade commissioners, we train all Canadian trade commissioners. So they, the FITT skills and our certified international trade professional designation, the CITP, is part of the career pathway for trade commissioners.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and one other link you would highlight, I know, is that several years ago, Export Development Canada was looking at doubling or tripling their list of regular clients. And I think at that time, Carolyn, please correct me, they had about 5,000 companies that were clients of EDC and therefore the most heavily engaged in international trade, and they wanted to grow that base. And one of the first things they did in putting that program together was to reach out to you.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's been a very interesting partnership.
Yeah, and we're still working with them. Yeah, one of the things, with respect to EDC, Export Development Canada, they were looking at one of the challenges that small, medium-sized businesses had with respect to getting involved in exporting was the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding of what it took. So with EDC, they wanted to support SMEs in getting that knowledge and through developing knowledge-based resources. So great, initiative on their part, of course, is, well, we don't have to create this. We'll partner with FITT. They already have a body of knowledge in international trade. It's designed by business for business. It's hands-on. It's practical. This is what businesses need. So we will work with FITT. So we've partnered together to provide a lot of that body of knowledge in international trade through the EDC FITT Center and other means.
And you have had over the years some international partnerships as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Quite a few.
This is exactly what our local companies have been asking for. So I'm going to put some contact information on this video. And I'm pretty certain that we're going to try to have FITT be represented out here. I'm going to get John very much involved. He thought he was going to retire. Good luck. So, Carolyn, we're going to end this stream. We're now at about half an hour, and I think that's about the limit most online viewers want to take to listen to anything. And so let's end the stream, but please don't end your Zoom call. We want to chat with you for a moment.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, John. And John.
Yes,
And
John.
thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Yes.
And congratulations for everything you've done to bring one guy's idea to the context in which it has an impact so well defined in this country.
I owe that to a lot of people, John T, and you are one of them, as well as Dieter, whom you mentioned, and many others. As you know, it does, you know, it takes if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you know, go together.
Right.
Takes a
Okay.
team.
Thank you very much. Stay with us. Hold on a sec, Carolyn.